I'd like to introduce a longtime friend, Donna Green, who's really a role model for many of us, for her determination. And this woman does not quit, as most of you in this room. And there's many lessons to be learned from her. Donna was diagnosed with RP 33 years ago and has served as the Foundation Fighting Blindness on the Foundation Fighting Blindness for 17 years, 12 of them being chair of the Foundation Board of Directors. And she's done a great job, I can tell you, in those last 12 years in that role. Donna continues to lead a full and active life as a business entrepreneur, athlete, musician, I can tell you singer also, along with her husband, her 2 grown children, and now a recent acquisition in their family household, her guide dog, Juno, who's just adorable. Juno is supposedly trained, but being trained by Donna or Juno is training Donna, I'm not too sure. But I think it seems to be like a dynamic relationship. Donna has also been a patient of mine. And recently, we were able to identify the genetic mutation responsible for her form of retinitis pigmentosa. So she's a good example that it took 20 years, but we made it there. I can't tell you how excited we were to provide Donna and her family with this important missing piece of the puzzle. Even though we're not delivering any treatment, at least we know where she's coming from. And she has like a more precise identity, which allows us to move forward in a specific direction. I know she's been waiting a long time for this, and you'll hear all about that today. So please join me in welcoming wholeheartedly Donna Green.
Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see a full house once again. Every time we put these conferences on, we fill the hall, which is fantastic that so many people are still interested and keeping track of the research. And as my good friend and Dr. Elise has said, I've been chairwoman of the board of directors, but more importantly, I like to stand here today and talk to you as a person with RP, living with the disease. So today I'm going to share a few of my crazy stories with you. I've been doing that over the years. Happy to keep doing it. And my stories today are about a dog and a phone call. So I always like to start my speech very positive. As Elise said, I'm determined and I'm positive. And I'll start by saying I have 5 degrees of really crappy, failing, dim, colorless central vision left in one eye. And it sucks. So there you go. That's my positive start. But I promise it'll get better. And so with that news, I figured, my central vision is starting to fail. I better go check in to sick kids and see my doc, which I did. And I don't like to go there very often because usually it's some awful treatment of a shot or a drop or a photo or something. We've all been there, right? And I don't go too often, but I figured, it's failing. I got to go see her. And in 25 years, she told me something I thought I would never hear. Elisa's going to kill me for this. And she said, there's nothing more I can do for you. Yeah, you did. We got to fight here afterwards. She said something along those lines. How about that? And with that news, and I wasn't too surprised because I've really kind of been living on borrowed time, I came home. And I said, maybe it's time to think about a guide dog. And so I thought about that. After all, I'd raised my kids for 20 years. They both left the house last summer. And, what do you do with kids, right? You feed them, you groom them, you pet them, you clean up their stinky bathrooms, and you feed them some more, right? They leave their laundry for you. I thought, this is good timing. My kids have left. I've had 2 months. Let's get a dog. And so I thought about this for one solid year, and I thought long and hard about it because it was a big change, and I had many interviews and phone calls with the guide school in the U.S., a school that I decided to go to, and it became clear for me that that was the thing for me, and they accepted me, and I accepted them, and sure enough, a year passed, and I was booked in for a flight to San Francisco. The course was 2 weeks long, and I had lots of business to put aside and take care of, but that was okay. And so arrived the morning at 5 a.m. I got up and had my long friend, the white cane, which I wasn't sure what was going to happen with that, and packed up my bags and came around the bend past my office. You know, I'm always hearing the little ding from my computer and a flashing light on the phone with more messages. And I said, no, you leave the office. You've got a flight to catch. Let's go. And so I arrived in San Francisco and started day one. And in day one, I met my 6 colleagues, 6 other blind people, more blind than me, believe it or not. And we each received our dogs, and there we were, 6 people, 6 blind people, 3 white labs, and 3 black labs. And it was quite a sight to see us go to dinner. We would go to dinner at a hotel, and we would ask the concierge, 2 tables, yes, that will be fine. And we would march in 6, count them, dogs. It was great. But the dogs were beautiful and well-behaved, and it was fantastic. And by day 2, the training got very, very intense, and it was exhausting and overwhelming. And, I was kind of a little bit in shell shock after the second day. I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I decided to do here? I just the kids left. Life was great. What am I doing? I'm trying to figure out the leash from the harness and the harness from the leash, and there's like fur everywhere. Like, my days of black pant wearing are completely finished. And I decided, I've never owned a dog before. This is the first thing you must know. And so the shell shock continued. And by day 3, I said, you know what? You need to go to your room and chill out. Do what's comfortable and familiar to you, which is get on your phone and pick up your emails and pick up your phone messages and just relax and get back to some kind of normal world. So I decided to do that. But little did I know that the phone calls to be picked up were far from normal. Okay, here's a sample of some of the calls I picked up. First one's from my mother. Hello, dear. This is your mother. I'm having dinner with the kids on Friday. Can you make it? I hope that dog training is going well. And I love getting messages from my mother because she always says, this is your mother. Okay? Now, I'm 58, all right? And I have over 5 decades to recognize my mother's voice. But the dear thing, she's 84, and so, yes, I did know this is your mother. So I skipped that message. I went to the next message. It was my tennis buddy. So I still play. I can't compete at tennis anymore. It's a game I absolutely adore. And I love, you have to wear whites, and I have my white cane, so I'm all, suited up properly. And it's always great because I take my white cane to find which court I'm playing on, fold up the cane, and take out my racket. And it's fantastic. Most of the people around the club know what's going on, so that's always a bit of a kick. And so the second message was, hey, we've got a court booked on Sunday. Will you make it? We'll hold the spot for you. I hope you can get back to us soon. Of course, I left that one go. And then there was the third call. And the third call was from the Sick Kids Hospital. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure I have too much more to do with the Sick Kids Hospital. I've kind of got to struggle along here. Except this message was from the genetics department. I said, okay, that's interesting. And the message on the phone was from a pleasant and somewhat excited voice saying, hello, this is the genetics department at Sick Kids Hospital. Please give us a call at your earliest convenience. We have some exciting news for you. We've identified your gene. You've identified my gene. I sat down in the chair and I said it to myself 3 times. They've identified my gene. I looked over at the dog and I'm thinking, okay, just a minute now. You've gone to the extreme far right, planning to go completely blind, and you're getting a guide dog. And I'm listening to my phone message saying, we've identified your gene. I mean, talk about extreme worlds. I must have said it to myself 5 times. I have a gene. They've identified it. And so I did what most women my age do. I poured a hot tub, and I climbed into the hot tub to think about this incredible news. I sat in that tub for a whole hour and I cried. I cried because, and I can't cry now because I've just spent $75 frickin' putting makeup on for a photo shoot. And I'll be really pissed if it ends up down at my chin. So I will not cry, although I did cry in that bathtub. And in that bathtub, I just thought, 33 years of wondering why, how, where did this come from? There's Alzheimer's in my family, there's heart disease in my family, vision loss. I do not understand. None of my siblings have this. None of my aunts and uncles have this. In one phone call, I discovered all the whys and the hows and the whats. And I started thinking what that meant. It meant that my parents were carriers. It meant that I have a recessive gene. And typically of this newly discovered gene that was mine, 1 in 4 or 5 of the siblings, the offspring of the parents, and guess what, I have 4 and 5 brothers and sisters, gets RP. And I got the lucky ticket. None of my siblings have it, but 1 in 4 or 5 do get it with carriers of this particular gene. 33 years I have wondered about this information. And for 33 years, I've been fighting for quality of life and fighting to get over this thing. And I just said, you know what, just carry on. There's nothing too much you can do about it. And one phone call answered this question. I dried away my tears. I pulled the plug and let the tub drain. And I heard this. Well then, my good buddy Juno, my new right appendage, was sitting looking at me in the tub. And as if she were to say, I'm very excited for you, Dawn. It's just great. You know, you found your gene. That's fantastic news. But I must tell you, I'm starved. Nobody's pet me in at least an hour. It's time for a walk, and there's scooping to be done out in the backyard. Ah, yes, Juno. I got pulled back into the world of my friend Juno, my little dog, and back into the world of training. Well, we went for 2 more weeks, and we trained hard, and we trained at night, and we trained in this town and that town, and we trained everywhere. And it was pretty amazing and very intense, and I've got a long ways to go. But 2 weeks later, I can tell you that it's been 3 weeks since I've had her here at home. And in the 2 weeks of training and the 3 weeks at home, I haven't used a white cane in 5 weeks. So that's pretty novel for me. And my colleague down in San Francisco where we trained said, I was saying, I just don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And she said, okay, in your remaining years of vision, would you rather stare down at the pavement or around at the world? And I knew she was right. So in 5 weeks, I've started to lift my head and look around at the stores and the people around me as little Juno guides me through the chaos and the visual world below me. And in 10 years, I haven't taken a walk in the evening without a guide or a white cane. And the other night, I walked 3 blocks to my friend's house for a rehearsal for some music things, and Juno got me there, no problem. And it was really cool because I knew I was walking by people, and I knew she was taking me around garbage cans, and it was a very, very interesting experience for me. But I must say, I drifted back pretty quickly to this phone call. An identified gene. What does this mean? I thought so long and hard about it. Does it mean that there's 10 of me in the world with this gene? Does it mean there are 100 people like this with this gene? And I know there are a few of us out here today that have the same gene. What it means to me is that I get to stand in a line. I get to stand in a clinical trial line the next time they find that it's worth doing a clinical trial on this particular gene. And that's not to say that some of you who have unidentified genes with a more generic type of RP don't also stand in a clinical trial line, because I think those kind of therapies are also being developed. But boy, was it ever exciting for me. The belief that I've had to keep and the hope that I've had to keep over 3 long decades has finally turned into a reality. I can't tell you what it means to me. And so how did I get to this path of getting a phone call from the sick kids department saying, we've identified your gene? Well, I'll tell you, there's 2 things I can think of. The first is that anybody in this room who has contributed funds to the foundation helped contribute to found Canada's first and only patient eye registry. Your funds helped establish that registry. And the foundation, if I can give a shameless plug here, in its incredibly forward thinking, which we are well known to do, decided that a registry with all of these clinical trials was really the time, it was time to establish that. And I wouldn't forget for 1 second that was all brought to our attention, and a major leading role to this registry was Dr. Elise Ayon from the Sick Kids. And so, I think I might have been number 1 on that list in the registry, and I think there's about 850 people there. And what happens is my blood sample was taken, and genes are discovered, and we test those people who are their blood work against the names of the people in the registry against those new genes discovered, and I was a match. Look at that. I think that's something else. And so my hope has turned to reality, and the reality is that the treatments are coming. And when the treatments come, I'm in line because I'm in the registry, and I hope the rest of you get there too. I've often wondered over all these years, and I've donated to many, many causes about research. It's dry, it's slow, it's unexciting, it's plodding, you don't have a building with your name on it, you don't have, you're sponsoring a lunch. It just kind of moves along. And it moves along and it continues to move, and it is successful. So Juno and I continue to do well. We get to know each other. She trains me and I train her. And you know what? Juno will continue to guide me in a world without sight. But the fast pace of research will take me to the world with sight. I thank you very much.